What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Football Corner podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah Queen. And if this is your first time viewing us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell so you can always get notified and updated when new videos and episodes drop on the channel. Also, if you're listening to me on a podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or even Spotify, go subscribe to the podcast. And let's jump right into things. Week 11 has come and gone. And it's time to talk about the team that has been winning games but has been very disappointing, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, and this goes to Mike Tomlin. It goes at the top. Let's start with him. Stop settling for mediocre offensive play. Stop settling for just getting by, winning games, because in the AFC you can't do that. And because you've been getting away with it, at the time you were 6-0 in one-score games. Now you're 6-1, and now you're 6-4, and you're about to come up on Thanksgiving. These games matter the most. This is when you want to play your best football, and haven't seen the Steelers do it yet. You could blame the quarterback, Kenny Pickett, which he's probably a problem. He only threw for 106 passing yards in the NFL game. That's the second time he has passed for, to my remembrance, that he passed for under 150 yards. That's not acceptable. That's not good enough to battle in the AFC, let alone the AFC North. And the Steelers are getting so many breaks. You're literally about to go on a run where you're playing nothing but backups, and we'll see what happens in the Patriots game. By the time you get to that one, it could be Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. But if you're the Steelers, you are getting everything's happening your way. You're getting backup quarterbacks, but if your quarterback is playing like a backup as well, you're never going to get far. You're not going to get far in the AFC or the AFC North at all. The Baltimore Ravens, you may have beat Baltimore, you may have owned Baltimore. But the Baltimore Ravens still have 2 games up on you, guys. Yes, 2 games. You need something else to change. Something needs to change. I don't know if it's a OC change. I don't know if it's a quarterback change. But something needs to happen to get this offense going. You're averaging less than 17 points a game. You scored 10 points up against a backup quarterback. The backup quarterback only scored 13. If you're the Browns, they knew what they had to do on defense and not let this team score more than probably 20 points. And they did that. They held y'all to 10. And the backup quarterback did just enough in order to get the victory because he had a really good defense. Mike Tomlin, you can't settle for being a physical football team and grinding out wins because you have a really good defense. You have one of the best defensive players in football, and TJ Watt. You have to play better. Your team has to play better. You need something on offense. You do everything else well, but right now it could be the quarterback, it could be play calling. One of the two. And we could talk about Najee Harris not being productive as well. He used to be a Pro Bowl running back. Now he just looks like just an average running back, nothing special. The backup running back is looking, was it Jaylen Warren? He looks better than Najee Harris. If I'm the Steelers organization, something has to change. And it starts with the OC and the quarterback play. If something needs to get better, something needs to happen if you would plan on contending in the AFC. And then we're going to transition into another team in the AFC that's very disappointing, and that's the Chargers. And you can say, well, the Chargers have always been disappointing, but not to this degree. I mean, what is happening? The Chargers are, I believe, 4-6. You lost to a Packers team that were spiraling. When a Jordan Love quarterback were still trying to determine if he could play football or not. The Chargers have too much talent to be this bad. You have a star quarterback. You have star receivers. You have star running back. You have really big pieces on defense, even though Joey Bosa went out, and we'll see what his injury is pretty soon. I think this has to be the icing on the cake for Brandon Staley to be fired. What more do you need to see from this team? And we could look in the past of the Chargers. The Chargers have always been talented and yet very disappointing with Phillip Rivers. Something has to change. Either Kellen Moore gets to bump up, but I think it starts with, I think the defense played good enough to win. It's something. It's either defense don't play good enough or the offense don't play good enough. Which one? One of these things have to change. And Justin Herbert, despite having a pretty decent game, he got outplayed by Jordan Love. Jordan Love played one of his best games since week 1 against the Bears. I think you cannot lose to the Jordan Love Packers. The Packers don't seem like a really good football team at this moment, and the Chargers need these wins now if you plan on contending. The Raiders are second in the division right now. The Raiders are second in the division, and they lost against the Dolphins. You're not catching up with the Chiefs. You can kiss that goodbye. The Chargers, something has to you have to have some urgency. Is what I would say. You have to have some urgency if you want this team, if you want it to be a playoff team. The Chargers are not good. Too many stars, underperforming, too much talent, too many people you're paying top 10, top 5 at the positions just not to get the results of victories. 4-6 is not acceptable. You were 10-7 last year. I don't see you getting 10 wins this year. You'd be lucky to get 8. And those really are my takeaways in Week 11 in terms of teams that are underperforming. And let's talk about teams that are actually ascending. We start with my hometown team, Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are playing really good football. They're 73 through 10 games. They have I wouldn't say commanding lead, but they have a good lead going into their Week 12 matchup against the Texans, and which a game I will actually be at. But the Texans are playing really good football. They beat the Cardinals. Their Texans are 6-4. I understand C.J. Stroud threw 3 interceptions, but I still think he should be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback this year and even be in conversation for the MVP, how well he's been playing. And go back to the Jaguars, just Trevor Lawrence, actually, they got the ball to Calvin Ridley. I've been preaching about this for the longest time. Give Calvin Ridley the football. He is your number 1 receiver. Give him the football. He had 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence had 2 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 4 touchdown day, and a blowout win against the Titans, who are just not a really good football team. They're still trying to figure out what they're going to be going forward at the quarterback position and other skill positions on that team. But kudos to the Jaguars. They had the best performance, in my opinion, in Week 11. But the team that had the greatest comeback will be the Detroit Lions, a team that's 8-2 for the first time I heard since the 60s. The Lions, I think the Lions are going to get the number 1 seed. I'm going to just go ahead and put it out there. Because I don't think the Eagles are going to just win out and only have 1 loss. But the Lions have a chance to only not lose no more games this season. And I believe the Lions are just that good of a football team. They played sloppy football and still came out with a victory. And everybody going to say they play the Bears. The Bears are not a good football team. When you play in your division, it's always difficult. Ask the Niners. Ask the Eagles. Ask the Cowboys. You can ask the Jags, who can't win against the Texans. When you're playing a divisional opponent, it's always hard. And the fact that the Lions pulled out a victory to go to 8-2 is really impressive. And I think the Lions truly can get home field advantage because they have a potential of winning out. And the Eagles still have to play the Cowboys and the Niners in the future. So we'll see what happens. But as of now, the Lions are my top NFC team. It's now time for upset in Week 11. And that's go to 2 teams. The first team is going to be the Packers. The Packers with their victory over the Chargers, and the Chargers team that have more star players on that roster than the Packers do. But Jordan Love had a career day, probably his second best game as a starter in his young career. Kudos to Jordan Love from balling out, making all the throws the Packers needed him to make. And the Chargers are just, I already talked about it earlier in this episode, the Chargers are just not a good football team, and they're spiraling out of control. But kudos to the Packers getting off that losing streak to going 4-6, and you never know, the Packers could make a run if Jordan Love's play could be more consistent like this. The second team will be the Giants and their victory over the Commanders, and I should put this out there, this loss against the Giants kind of solidified Ron Rivera going to be fired in the offseason. The Commanders begin a new head coach. I'm saying it here now. Back to the Giants with their rookie quarterback, Tommy DeVito, having a career day, throwing for a couple of touchdown passes, going for over 200 yards in a game that really means nothing because I don't think the Giants actually are going to make the playoffs, and they're still in the Caleb Williams, the Penix, or the Drake May sweepstakes. But I do believe that the Giants fans were tired of losing, and Tommy DeVito, for at least 1 week, gave them what they were looking for, and it looks good. It looks good for the Giants, but the Giants still are just not a good football team. But for 1 week, they had a good game, and that's why they got my upset of Week 11. Well, thank you for watching and listening to the Football Quarter podcast. If you want to follow me on more things I do outside the YouTube channel, you can check me out on my social media pages or at the Football Corner podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Thank you for watching and listening. See you next time.